What if the exploding Lyme epidemic isn't Mother Nature's wrath, but a Cold War bioweapon gone rogue, with US engineered ticks dropped from planes still biting back 50 years later? Diving deep into the shadows where science, history, and conspiracy collide. Today, we're scratching an itch that runs deep, literally. Ticks, those tiny terrors that turn hikes into horror stories. But what if they're not just pests? What if they're weapons? Imagine this. During the Cold War, the US military turned tiny ticks into silent assassins, loading them with deadly pathogens like tumaria and Q fever, and then dropping them from planes on unsuspecting enemies. These weren't just bugs, they were bioweapons designed to bypass gas masks and haunt battlefields for weeks. Fast forward today. Lyme disease is exploding across the globe with over 89,000 reported cases in the US. In 2023 alone, and estimates pushing toward 628,000 actual infections in 2024. There's a leaked UN report that claims it all traces back to accidental releases from those secret labs. What if your next tick bite isn't nature's revenge, but a Cold War ghost? Stick around. I'm diving deep into this classified files that could rewrite everything you know about ticks. There is a UN statement on US entomological bioweapons and tick-borne diseases. This 2022 written statement to the UN Human Rights Council, submitted by the Planetary Association for Clean Energy, exposes the US military's covert Cold War era program called developing quote unquote bug-borne biological weapons. It argues that uncontrolled releases of pathogen-laden insects, particularly ticks, may have contributed to the global surge in tick-borne diseases, violating international law like the 1972 Biological Weapons Convention. The document calls for the declassification of records to address ongoing health crisis. During the Cold War, the US military operated a secret entomological weapons program that weaponized ticks alongside other insects, loading them with disease-causing microbes for release on enemies. Ticks were prized for their stealth. A 1959 US Army report emphasized that they, quote, inject the agent directly into the body so that a gas mask is no longer a protection to the soldier, and they will remain alive for some time, keeping an area constantly dangerous. It just sounds like a bad idea from the start. But, these living weapons pose long-term risks comparable to nuclear fallout, particularly and potentially violating the 1972 Convention on the Prohibition of Biological Weapons by causing enduring human and environmental harm. Post 1972 program termination, pathogen-laden ticks continued spreading via animals, birds, and other vectors. Who would have guessed? Evidence suggests uncontrolled releases of infected ticks, both domestically and internationally, contributed to the global rise in tick-borne diseases. Goes on and on. But this isn't just a dry history or shadowy documents. It's personal, devastatingly so. My lifelong battle with ticks started as a kid and nearly broke me. It shaped my faith, my fury, and my mission to uncover the truth. Let me take you back. A deeply personal story, one that's shaped my life, and it's tested my faith and left me furious at the powers that be. It's about ticks, Lyme disease, and the shocking truth that our government may have turned these bloodsuckers into weapons. My first run-in with a tick hit like a horror movie scene. I was just a kid at camp, summer camp, deep in the Wisconsin woods, bunked in a damp cabin that felt more like a potato cellar than a cozy retreat. Was in the top bunk, lights went out, and as I drifted off to sleep, my hand brushed my scalp. A bump! I freaked. I screamed bloody murder, waking every boy in the place. Clambering down the bunk bed, I pawed at it and panked it and yanked it out. It was a fat, engorged tick swollen with my blood. I flung it to the cold cement floor and stomped it flat, blood everywhere. That was my baptism by bite, and little did I know ticks would haunt me forever. Fast forward to my teens, a family vacation in Jamaica. Bored to the beach, I befriended a local and begged, "Take me into the jungle, show me the real deal, man." We hiked a half a day into the thick green, and I was exhilarated. The trail forked around knee high grass in a sunny clearing. My guide stuck to the path. He knew better. In shorts, I barreled straight through the grass like an idiot. We kept going on our hike, chattering away, until I glanced down at my ankles. What the hell? It looked like an ant invasion, but worse. Hundreds of tiny baby ticks marching up my legs like a living carpet. If you've ever felt one, you know that prickly hook leg crawl feeling, and it's just impossible to ignore or shake off. You can't shake it off. Even for a dog rolling in the dirt, it's just impossible. Panic set in. What do we do? I yelled. We scrambled to a nearby stream, channeling some National Geographic primate grooming ritual. For over an hour, we picked them off, one at a time. Tiny horrors burrowing past my knees, heading for my crotch. We got most, but it was a nightmare. No bites showed up later, thank God, but the trauma etched in stone forever. During my college days, I had more tick encounters. I was hooked on bicycle camping. It was my thing. Solo adventures, pitching tents in remote woods across Wisconsin. The ticks, they were inevitable. They just latch on unnoticed because here's the scary part. You don't feel the bite at first. They're stealthy little vampires. I just plucked them out when I spotted them, but they were just a part of the wildlife and I could deal with them. It wasn't like they were a bioweapon. Back then, I was a picture of health, a track star in a high school, clocking a mile at 4 minutes and 26 seconds my freshman year, a state record, 4 laps around that oval, lungs burning, body lean, unbreakable, I felt. I thank God daily for my blessings of good health. But in 1985, at our family summer spot in Door County, Wisconsin, which had beautiful ancient boreal forests, ticks had never been a big thing. We didn't have them really. But I got it somewhere else. Everything shattered that summer before college. Overnight, I woke up one day unable to walk. My left knee ballooned to 3 times its size, hot and throbbing. Every joint screamed. My whole body turned arthritic, achy, fiery with every movement. From peak athlete to crippled invalid in hours. I couldn't bike. I couldn't function. Debilitated at 19, I rushed to the University of Wisconsin's world-class medical center. As a freshman, I hobbled in, begging, "Help me, look at this, I can't walk." They poked, prodded, scanned for weeks, blood tests, x-rays, the works, nothing definitive. They slapped me on a brutal regimen, tetracycline, I can't remember everything, and a whole other array of antibiotics for endless months. Then just aspirin to dull the pain. Go home and rest, they said. No answers. They dubbed it Reiter's syndrome or some vague label. It meant nothing, a catch-all phrase, a mystery syndrome. It ruined my freshman year. I limped through 2 semesters, a ghost of my former self. But I refused to break through prayer. God, heal me, guide me, and sheer grit, I clawed back. I inherited my dad's old Schwinn 5-speed, one of those upright bikes you ride, old-fashioned, a basket in the front. And I called him Old Brown. We had a relationship. It was a great bike, but it hurt like hell to pedal. So I'd lock it in first gear and just rotate the crank slowly. And I'd whisper to myself and to God, I can do this, heal. Short walks turned into longer ones. Months blurred into years of this self therapy, leaning on my faith and my persistence. By 2 years, the swelling faded, the pain ebbed. I was nearly whole again. God got me through. But I gotta say, I am livid, angry. How dare they, the US government, inject ticks with lab bred horrors, drop them from planes like the CIA did in 1962 operation on Cuban workers, and let them loose in our backyards. Radioactive ticks scattered across Montana and bird flyways in the 60s, seeding non native strains from Canada to South America. It's insanity, ecological terrorism, plain and simple. And the fallout? Lyme cases exploding, over 89,000 reported in the US in 2023 alone, with the CD estimating nearly 500,000 cases yearly. Treatments fail anywhere from 10 to 36% of the time. Costs of this treatment top $1 billion annually. Decades later, I read Chris Newby's Bitten, The Secret History of Lyme Disease and Biological Weapons. It all clicked. That syndrome? Likely undiagnosed Lyme from a tick, a national epidemic affecting, as I said, 300,000 Americans annually back then. A figure that later the updated CDC report shows to be 476,000, and now surging even higher. Newby's book isn't just a read, it's a revelation. Published in 2019 by Harper Wave, Bitten blends her own tick nightmare from 2002 with hardcore investigative journalism, exposing Lyme's dark origins. Forget natural evolution, she argues. This plague stems from US military bioweapons gone awry. And at the center, Willy Bergdorfer, the Swiss-born genius who discovered Borrelia burgdorferi in 1982, winning the Lasker Award, or known as the American Nobel. But Newby uncovers his secret. He weaponized ticks at places like Plum Island, just miles from Lyme, Connecticut. That is where the name Lyme disease comes from. Newby kicks off with the unseen enemy, ticks as, quote, nature's perfect parasite, unquote, with mouth parts secreting anesthetics, you don't feel it, anticoagulants, it flows quickly, and immunosuppressants, so your body doesn't know how to fight against it, to feed undetected for days, injecting pathogen cocktails. Why the 1975 Lyme, Connecticut surge? The fastest growing vector-borne illness in the US? Well, Newby teases Bergdorfer's deathbed confession. Lyme wasn't nature's accident, but tied to bioweapons. She spotlights that the Cold War chaos, scientists bred millions of ticks, infecting them with tularemia, plague, and rickettsia, testing dispersal via bombs or aerial drops. Plum Island, fortified post-1954 and staffed with Nazi scientists via Operation Paperclip, yeah, that's a whole other broadcast coming up, became ground zero. Nixon's 1969 moratorium halted the work, but defensive work lingered with accidents galore. Chapter 5 nails the tipping point. 1969, old Lyme outbreak. Kids with arthritis and symptoms amid post-DDT tick booms. Military entomologists like Daniel Schonenschein eyed tick swarms for weapons, and Plum Island tested infected deer. Reforestation and deer overpopulation amplified it. But escaped lab strains, that's the smoking gun. Bergdorfer confessed to engineering stealth pathogens. Suppressed by orders, Newby exposes pharma-grade faulty tests missing 50 to 70% of cases, and a system dooming millions to misdiagnoses. Newbies' health rebounds via oxygen therapies and herbs, but millions still suffer. She demands declassification. But Newbie's bombshell got international backup, not just a conspiracy. Enter the 2022 UN Human Rights Council statement from the Planetary Association for Clean Energy, exposing US, quote, bug-borne bioweapons. It's a call to arms, arguing these releases violate the 1972 Biological Weapons Convention. This fiery document details the Cold War entomological nightmare. Ticks loaded with microbes prized in a 1959 Army report for direct injection, quote, no mask protection, constant danger, unquote. Post 1972, these diseases spread via birds and beasts, seeding epidemics. The 1962 CIA airdrop of infected ticks via capillary tubes on Cuban sugarcane workers with Q fever, Tomaria, Weil's disease, Western equine encephalitis, typhus, Asiatic relapsing fever, and rabies. Then, 1966 through 69, hundreds of thousands of radioactive ticks were dumped in Montana and the Atlantic Flyway, and ticks hitchhiking on migratory birds from Canada to South America. Bergdorfer's bombshell. He admitted bioweapon ties, fingering the 1968 Lyme cluster, Lyme babesiosis, spotted fever, as a lab accident, and he was silenced on. And today, ticks push north with milder winters. Quebec's Lyme risk doubled. Manitoba's tripled from 2000 to 15. And secrecy reigns. FOIAs is a Freedom Information Act. These FOIAs have been denied. Congressional probes like Representative Smith's blocked. This echoes Agent Orange. Millions compensated later. Now, Lyme reports doubled in 13 years. No vaccine. Tests flop 10 to 36%. Costs $1 billion yearly. Non-native ticks globetrot via pets and planes. 50 years on, records are overdue for declassification. Did Lyme disease start with the 60s spill? Here in Sweden, around Stockholm, ticks rule the grass and woods. One brush and you're crawling with them. Typically, Swedes jab for tick-borne encephalitis. 3 shots, yearly boosters. And we have a lovely Chihuahua. He gets the tick preventative VIP treatment, tangerine peel extract, cayenne pepper juice, and an amber necklace. No grass romps, full body scans, every walk, 4 times a day. Ticks are smart. They burrow in clever spots, ears, bellies, and deep under the fur. What an ordeal. But we love him, and it's all worth it. I have to give you my message, vigilance is your armor. Check after every outing. Ticks aren't pests. They're potential Cold War ghosts. Demand transparency from the authorities, arm up with knowledge and prevention, and keep praying. Drop your tick tales in the comments. Thanks for tuning in, and we see you next time. Bye.